Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for another eTRIPS Mobile 2 video. In this video, we're going to go over how to enter in a completed trip. Wanted to make sure that before you started this video that you've taken a look at our other videos, which include downloading from the App Store and setting up your favorites. Remember, to set up your favorites, you're going to click on the menu icon in the upper left-hand corner and then click on Favorites. Here you will find all the categories to set up your favorites. If you haven't done this, please go back to the video entitled Setting Up Your Favorites and watch that before you begin this one. Okay, some of the things I wanted to show you real quick before we get into Enter a Completed Trip is your logbook. If you click on your logbook here, that's going to bring up any of the previous trips that you've done in the past. So you can see that we've entered in one previous trip and that we've also submitted that trip successfully. You can see that the trip was submitted successfully by the icon here with the cloud and the lock. And we'll go over that more in detail after we show you how to put your trip in. But I just wanted to show you that. One of the features of the eTRIPS mobile app is that it will auto-populate fields from a previous trip, making it easier to put in your information and then change things from trip to trip. Your screen, just to let you know, may not look exactly like this screen here. You may not have trip notification, but don't worry, that's okay. Your screen will look like what it's supposed to look for the licenses that you have. You will also see that there are two other buttons here, one for track a new trip and enter a completed trip. The track your trip is for those captains that want to actually track their trip and their catches while they're out on the water. The app will give you a map of where you caught your fish and also where your trip was. That information and those locations stay with the device and those do not get uploaded to anywhere. So that's really just for the captain's own personal use. For this demonstration, we're going to enter a completed trip. That is, you already did your trip in the past, and now you want to either sit at home and enter your trip or complete it after the fact. So what you want to do is click on Enter a Completed Trip, and that's going to bring up your trip setup. So here what you want to do is click on each category and enter in the appropriate information for each box. So for this, we're going to do a charter trip, and we're going to pick our favorite vessel. And then depending on the permit that we have, if only one permit is available for this type of trip, then it'll automatically auto-populate that information in. Otherwise, you'll pick from a list of permits. If you look down to the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see that the box down here is now lit up, meaning that you can go on to the next page. So let's just take a quick look down the page, and you'll see different fields that are automatically filled in. You have your VTR number, which is going to be automatically populated as you begin your trip, and then your trip activity, where your end port was, the captain's name, number of crew, your number of anglers, paying passengers, your total trip fee, how many gallons of gas that you used, the price per gallon, and then your notes. The notes section is just for you. That doesn't go anywhere. Those notes stay right with the device itself. That's just for you to be able to go back and take notes about this trip. Okay, so what you want to do is, the first thing you could do is give your trip a name. A lot of the captains like to use this and they put in the maybe the name of the party that they took out. So if they put the Jones group, and then fishing with efforts, their trip activity. This is where you would put what kind of trip you did. So if you just were doing a transit with product on board, or you had a mechanical breakdown, you turned around due to bad weather, that's where you would indicate that here. Otherwise, it's going to automatically populate fishing trip with efforts. Your end port will auto-populate, and if that is where you ended your last trip, you can just scroll through that. Your captain's last name and first name, if that's the same, you would just scroll through that. Let's say this trip you didn't have a mate. You were a captain, but you didn't have a mate. So you as the captain would count as 1. And then instead of 6 anglers on this trip, you only had 4. And then that means your number of paying passengers was 4, if that's the case for this trip. And you can change the amount of the trip if that's the case, along with the gallons of gas, and then the price per gallon. Again, if you wanted to put any notes in on the trip. Otherwise, you'll see here that the bottom right hand tab here, this button is lit up, allowing you to proceed to the next page. Okay, so your primary area is fished, federal waters there, or you could change it to any of the other primary areas fished. But let's say you were in federal waters, your waters fished, you can change that to anywhere. And these again are picked from your favorites. So you could change any of the waters fished. Your gear type, let's say that was hook and line, so you're going to keep that. Your number of hooks per line, let's say you had 2, and let's say that you had 4 lines out there. Your bottom depth, let's say you were fishing at 85 feet, and your minimum on that day was 60, and then your maximum fishing depth, let's say that was 110. Okay, so you filled out all those answers. The next is going to be target species. What did you actually go out to target? So in this, let's say that we targeted amberjack, and let's say that we targeted some bank sea bass. Okay, so those are going to be your target species. Your location can be put in one of 2 ways. If you click on the pin over on the right hand side, that's going to bring up degrees and minutes for lat and long, and you can change those in this area here. And that would change on the map. Or if you find it easier to just click on the map, you would click on that, and then you can bring this in, and depending on where you're fishing, let's say you're out in this area here, you could click there, and that's going to automatically drop your pin. So you could move that pin around, but let's say that that's where you want it. Okay. Again, more notes on the trip and this particular effort you could put there. So you'll see here again that the next tab, the next button is lit up. So you could click on that to move forward. You're not tracking your trip, so you don't have to change anything there. Let's say that this trip was actually from yesterday. And you started this trip at 6 a.m. And you came back the same day, so you came back on the 11th. And you came back in at about 2 o'clock p.m. Okay? Easy enough. Then you want to know how many hours did you fish in this effort. So let's say in this effort we actually fished about 4 hours. That's how long our rods were in the water. So you'll see that we've answered all of the questions here. We can click the next button. And now we're going to start our trip. So now we're on our catches page. You can see here under your favorite species that you can scroll, and any of the favorites that you put in for your species will appear here. So let's go and put in some fish. Let's say that we caught an amberjack, so we would click on amberjack. Then we're going to put in information about that catch. Let's say we only had one of these. Our catch disposition is what did we do with the fish? If you kept it for personal use, if you happen to release it, you could click on that and change your catch disposition. Your catch source will almost always be standard unless you're part of a research set-aside group or aquaculture. You'd be able to change that here. Same with market and grade. You can change that if you wanted to. The length of your fish is not mandatory, but you could also have that for your records, and it's also good for management. So let's say that this was 24 inches. And then when you're done, click Save. You'll see here that there's two tabs, Summary and Catches. Okay? So you can go from one to the other, and if you put in your species one at a time, it'll actually keep track and add your summary together. So if you put in another amberjack and came back, it would show that there were two kept. So that's your summary. So let's say that you also caught some cobia. And let's say you had 4 cobia and you kept those. You don't have to put in the length of the fish, but if they were all about the same, you could. Otherwise, click Save. And then let's say that you had a grouper that you didn't keep, and that we threw that back alive. So you'll see there that we changed our kept disposition to released alive, and then you can click Save. Let's say you caught a species that is actually not in your favorites. To show this, you would go to the upper right hand corner and click on the magnifying glass. Let's say you caught a puffer fish, and it was a northern puffer, so you would click on northern puffer. Say you caught one of those, you released it alive, so you click Save. As you can see here, your summary is going to show you all the different species that you caught in a summary format. And if you wanted to delete one, or if you wanted to change anything, you would click on the Catches tab. And let's say that cobia where you said you count 4, you actually only had 3. So you would be able to change that. You could also delete a catch by clicking on the Delete button. So for this, we're going to make our changes and click Save. So for our trip, we had 1 northern puffer that we released alive, a black grouper that we released alive, we kept 3 cobia, and we kept 1 amberjack. If that's all that you had in this trip and you're finished, click on the offloads. On the offloads page, you can see here that you have no more catches to offload. If you wanted to look at the offloads, you can click on the offloads tab, and then you can see here that you had no sale and you retained these species for either yourself or people on your vessel. So you don't have to do anything here. All of your catches have already been offloaded and you're all set. Next thing you're going to do is click on Trip Report. Once that trip report comes up, you're going to see that it's automatically checked. And then what you want to do is click on the button here that says I certify that this vessel trip information is providing is true. So you would read that and then click that check mark, and then you would hit submit. The information is going to be uploaded to the ACCSP. And then when you're done, you're going to get the success. So that means that all of your information has been submitted successfully. Clicking on the Done page will bring you back to your logbook page where you can now see that this trip has been successfully submitted. It also has the cloud with the arrow on it indicating that it has been sent successfully. Say you wanted to make a quick change on one of your trip reports, that's really easy too. First, you would pick out the trip report. If you wanted to change the catches on that trip report, you would just click on the Catches button. And that's going to bring me back to all of your catches. So say you wanted to add a length on the black grouper that you caught. Say that was 19 inches. You can add that length, and then if you wanted to, you can go through the process of submitting this trip back to the ACCSP, and that information will be added to your trip report. So that's pretty easy. From here, you could click back on the Menus tab and then go back to your home page. A few items that I wanted to bring to your attention before we end this training session is using the Menu tab in the upper left-hand corner. This menu page will allow you to do different things. One of them is change some favorites. I wanted to go real quick to the About. If you click on the About button, that's going to bring you to a page that gives you some information. Here you will see the release version. If you click on the feedback button at any time, you can actually send us an email with your feedback. So if you wanted to send us information, you could click here and then hit send, and that's going to deliver us your feedback. We really encourage you to give us feedback. It actually helps build a better app. If you wanted to switch devices, say you got a new phone or you wanted to move from an iPad to your phone, you could click on the Backup Current Database, and that's going to take your database and back it up for you. You would then use your new device, log in, and then restore that same database through this next button, Restore Your eTRIPS to Database. That's going to bring that database right onto your new device, and that way you'll always have all of your trips with you. Under the support area, you can see where it says Send Diagnostics. Sometimes we may be having problems and we want to look at some of the things that you were doing when you had the problems, and we may ask you to send diagnostics. When you send diagnostics, that's going to take the diagnostics within your device, and when you click on that, that's just going to send us your diagnostic so we can help better address your problem. Again, if you go back to the menu button, you can go back to your home screen to put in a new trip. We appreciate you taking the time and listening to this training video. If you have any other questions, please remember that we have a 24/7 help desk that you can call at any time. We really do encourage you to give feedback, and if you have any questions, please feel free to call us anytime. Thanks for watching.